one of the things that I want you to be aware of is by realizing you can't tell how wealthy somebody is, or you can't tell how successful they are by simply looking at them. And that's an important thing to think about because it's a novice thing that people get messed up with, and it sort of tells more about people's egos than what is truly going on. Let me explain, right? So somebody that's got an ego is going to want to have observable, or somebody that is that has sort of high narcissism tendencies, going to have visible traits or visible things that they're going to want to display to other people, so they can see, you can see that they're wealthy, or that they have some degree of performance or success or whatever, right? So they're going to do things like get into real estate, for example, and try to say that they're selling X number of real estate places, right? So the homes, try to sell homes. Um, they might get into things like having a nice car, and displaying that. They might have all these kind of different displays of wealth and prosperity, and that's like kind of a novice thing, right? Like that is somebody that really doesn't understand financial markets very well when they do those kind of things. Because if you understand financial markets, um, the whole idea behind financial markets is that you can own things and they don't have to be a display to other people, and you own them in paper, right? Like that was the idea of why financial markets started, was that there's lots of things that um, are great to own, but they're kind of more on the intangible side, or they're just difficult to sort of have. You're not going to have a factory in your backyard, right? And so that's why that they were divvied up, or property was divvied up to have multiple ownership of that property with stocks and bonds and those kind of things, securities. And so that allows you, somebody that's more astute, to own a whole bunch of stuff and nobody needs to know. Which is a good thing, right? There's all these assets that that are not observable. In fact, there's a growing, that the number of assets that you can own is definitely growing in terms of variety. And so you can own all these kind of things, and that is a really positive thing, to own many different assets in this world, right? So why is it bad to just own a house and put all of your money into a house? Well, it tends not to go up in value that much, right? It's going to go up maybe around inflation, or somewhere around inflation. The last year or 2 years has been really strange, largely due to what happened at the Federal Reserve or the banks around the world. But for the most part, housing goes up somewhere around in the rate of inflation. And if you look at it and you sort of say that, hey, you know what, you can write off some of those things, there's tax breaks and things like that. Yes, there are some things like that you can build in, but the rate of return generally does not surpass what you can get when people are economically producing things. And when they're economically producing things like widgets, right, with new creative solutions and things like that, it tends to be owned within companies. And what you're buying into is, when you buy different stocks and you buy sort of broadly, is you're buying into all of this creative endeavor and the sort of intellectual efforts of other people. And that's where most value is actually stored, if you didn't know, in the sort of the abilities of individuals, but not only of the individuals, but them together within a company. That's what we know, and it's at the heart of how we understand business today. in a business school is that people really are important, and it's their combined intellectual capabilities that matter, right? It's not just like intellectual capabilities of an individual, but it's everything within that organization that matters. Now, the other thing is that I've sort of alluded to this when I was talking about it, that the diversification of your assets is really important. One day that house could burn down. Now you likely have insurance on that house, but there's a heck of a lot of effort and money and time and other things that are added to that to repair that house that you're going to have to pay out of pocket, or you're going to have to do out of pocket. But when you own property, own securities that are on, basically on the internet now, right? Like that's how you buy a lot of securities. Securities being stocks and bonds. Then if something happens to any one of them, you're not worrying about it that much, right? So it just disappears. It's not a big deal, right? And they happen. This happens all the time. They just disappear, and it doesn't affect you, doesn't affect your life. And in fact, that's how you should be thinking about most assets in your life. I know early on, um, it's hard to, every asset is very precious to you, like all of it, like even a piece of clothing and stuff like that is very precious, and it should be, right? Like it's still precious to me. But as you sort of progress, and own more things and own more assets, in your life, then any individual asset should not, you shouldn't care if it gets destroyed or turned, like obviously I would be heartbroken if we lost our house to a fire and we lost all of our, pictures and, you know, possessions and things like that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that much because it's just another, it's just another asset that you own, and it's really not that big of a deal. In terms of financial speaking, emotionally, yes, but financially, it's not that big of a deal if you're diversified very broadly. And that's where I want you to sort of think about is how you can diversify as much as you possibly can so that you're not running into any issues in the long run. So, all right, that's all I wanted to say is just know by looking at people and seeing all of this sort of stuff that they have, that is not symbolic of anything. There's very little correlation between the stuff that people sort of display and the actual wealth that they actually have. Just remember that most wealth is going to be hidden. You're not going to see it. Not hidden in the sense of like people hiding, and doing all kind of shady business, but it's people buying stocks and bonds and doing kind of ordinary people things that they do, saving for retirement. And that's where most wealth is going to be contained. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.